Aloha, welcome to the 12th episode of the 10th series of the Temple of Surf, the podcast. Today with us from Hawaii, surf photographer Mike Coots. We discuss with him about his book, Shark, Surf Photography, Surf, and much more. Aloha, Mike. Welcome to the show. Where are you today?
Thank you for having me. I am on the beautiful island of Kauai in a town called Kilauea on the North Shore.
Fantastic. It's a beautiful place, North Shore. Everybody go and visit North Shore at least once in life because it's...
So I'm on an outer island, North Shore. I'm not on the North Shore with pipeline.
Okay. Okay.
So a different island. Yep.
Sorry. My bad.
Yeah. No. Yep.
It's still a good place, I guess.
It is. Very good place. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I live in very close to Ryan Hackman, who was on your podcast a few weeks back.
Exactly. Fantastic guy, and I had a nice chat with him. Yes, so I have many things. I'm a curious person of nature, so I will have a lot of questions for you. But the first question I ask everyone in the show: in your opinion, what is the most important thing in surfing?
The most important thing in surfing definitely is to have fun. If you're not having fun and there's not a smile on your face, I'm not sure why you'd be doing it. So the number one is to just make sure you enjoy yourself and keep it fun.
Yeah, keep it fun. Yes. Many times in the podcast, we were trying to define this fun thing because not everyone in the lineup has fun. It's of course, we all have our problems, but sometimes it's getting quite nasty out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and also we were talking about fun for professional surfers. That sometimes they stop competing because it's not fun anymore. I mean, it's fun. The sport is not fun. While
fun for them anymore. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So it's quite different from all of us normal surfers. And how did this started your passion for surfing? I guess living in Hawaii is something that everybody has to do, right?
Yep. I was born here on the island and would have caught my first wave at about 4 years old. It was on a boogie board on the South Shore. My grandmother, I remember pushing me into a wave, and how incredible that feeling was. I fell in love with boogie board. This was an era of, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mike Stewart, the bodyboarder. He was a total icon to my friends and I, and we idolized him. And there was a group of us. We all wanted to be him. Everything we could absorb, boogie boarding magazines, boogie boarding videos. We wanted to be Mike Stewart, whatever shorts he was wearing, how he didn't use a leash on his boogie board. We mimicked everything he did to the T. And I was fortunate when I was about 13 to meet him. We took a family holiday to Oahu and saw him at Sandy Beach on the east side. And I got his autograph, and I remember how stoked I was. And I talked to my parents. My dad is from Oahu, and he, when he was younger, wasn't really too much into surfing. Every once in a while, go out to the North Shore, and I always wanted to visit the North Shore and see Pipeline. And the day after I met Mike Stewart and got his autograph, I talked to my parents. This was actually the day after Christmas. I talked them into going to the North Shore just to go look at Pipeline. And we went and drove from town. We were staying in Manoa on the other side of the island. We got in the car and we drove and pulled up to Pipeline at sunset and walked out for literally 5 minutes to check the waves and came back, and our car got broken into. And my autograph of Mike Stewart was stolen. No. I remember being the saddest kid, just gutted and super bummed, and didn't think my friends back home on Kauai were going to believe me that I met him. And about, it wouldn't have been maybe a month later, I was surfing this local beach break here at home, tiny little beach. It's in a little half moon bay, and this tourist car pulls up and we're all out boogie boarding, and sure enough, it's Mike Stewart and his wife. And they come to the beach and they paddle out, and we both have the same name. And I remember him saying, "Hey, what's up, Mike?" in front of all my friends, like knowing who I was and my name because I had just briefly met him. And I look back on it now that it's because we had the same name, but I was on cloud nine. It was a pretty classic story.
Fantastic,
and since then we become good friends.
Okay. Yeah. So for in that day, you were the hero for all your friends.
Yeah, for my friends. Yeah. Our idol showed up to our local beachy.
Well, how random is that? It's great.
Yeah.
But Mike Stewart, of course, is like stands for bodyboarding, like Kelly Slater.
Yes, some people say he's one of the greatest wave riders of all time. He's gotten barreled easily at Pipeline, argued with anybody else in the world. He's really invented a lot of maneuvers in bodyboarding. I think his amount of world titles is right under Kelly Slater's in the bodyboarding world.
Certainly.
Yeah, and he won.
Maybe he did one more.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, definitely a legend, like
Yeah.
like fantastic waterman, not only bodyboarder. And what was the first proper surfboard? The one that you were dreaming, or actually was bodyboard, or at a certain point you had a shift? How did it?
So I got a kind of a different story. So I got really into competitive bodyboarding. I got into my late teens. My friends, I had a lot of professional surfer friends, but then I had a lot of professional bodyboarder friends, or friends that were starting to make a living out of bodyboarding. This is at a time when you could actually like make a good living and travel the world with endorsements, entering bodyboarding contests. And I got really into that. I joined a bodyboarding team. It was a mix of surfers and bodyboarders. And we were all sort of in that age, like around the 18-year-old time frame of transitioning from high school into traveling full-time as a professional surfer or bodyboarder. I had this coach, Bob Sato, and we would go down, my surfer friends and bodyboarding friends, and we would go down to the beach wherever was good that day. And he would film us. And then we would watch the footage in the afternoon. We did this mostly on the weekends, but also sometimes during the week. And I had graduated high school, got some endorsements. We went down to the beach one morning to a surf spot on the western side of the island, and it was a sunrise surf. And I paddled for my very first wave that morning, and a tiger shark attacked me, bit off my leg, became an amputee right then there on the beach. My teammate Kyle, he made a tourniquet with my leash. Found out later that saved my life, and rushed to the emergency room. Went into shock. Should have died, but I didn't. Woke up the next day missing a leg, and about a week or so in the hospital. And I was back in the water about a month after that, bodyboarding, and it helped because I could just leave my prosthetic or leave my crutches at the time on the beach, and with one leg bodyboard pretty well. In fact, I remember talking to Mike Stewart right after it happened, and he said I should probably have an advantage over other bodyboarders because I'll have less drag in the water. Instead of two fins, I have one fin, so I'm actually going faster. And if I go right, my inside fin is missing, and I think I can almost get deeper in the barrel than I would with two legs because I just have less drag and I can get sucked further back in that vacuum and in that foam ball area. So he was kind of right. Like it's almost an advantage in the sport of bodyboarding. And I got really into photography, and I applied to an art school in Santa Barbara shortly after the attack, and moved to Santa Barbara. And it would have been my third year in school. The waves in Santa Barbara are like, it's Rincon, Sandspit, these long point break waves that are really good for shortboarding, longboarding, but they just absolutely suck for bodyboarding. Like a good bodyboarding wave, you want a wave that's ramping with two peaks coming together, or a big bowl like Nathan Florence searches out, those kind of slabby waves. Santa Barbara has none of those. It's just perfect point breaks for surfing. And I remember one summer, my college friends up down at the beach, and they were like, you should try to catch a wave with your prosthetic leg. And I had been told I didn't have insurance, so I was kind of just gifted prosthetics every once in a while. And the guy who did told me to not take it in the water, that it would void the warranty, it would break. He wouldn't be able to work on it. And so I was really hesitant of taking it in the water. But it was just one of those days. It was a spot called Ledbetter. It's this little right-hand point break that's a really fun wave. It's shallow. You could sort of walk halfway out. And my friends had these big soft surfboards. And I was like, you know what the heck? Something inside of me told me to just try it. And I paddled out, stood up on my first wave with my prosthetic, and was like, whoa, this is pretty rad. Like, this is so fun. And it was really like, I had just goofed around a couple times as a child on surfboards, but I never really got into surfing. I was just a diehard bodyboarder. And it was kind of a defining moment for me, catching this first wave at Ledbetter Beach. And then from then I tried to figure out, okay, how can I make better surfing prosthetics? Like if I Googled surfing with a prosthetic leg, nothing would come up on the internet. It felt like nobody in the world was really doing it. And in a way, it felt cool to kind of be trying to do something that nobody else in the surfing world is doing, and learning, what works better prosthetic wise for surfing. I'm regular foot, so it's my back foot. I'm fortunate to have my knee, so it's really my ankle that I'm trying to figure out how to work. And early on, I thought, because I started getting into toe and surfing, and with friends trying to tow me into some pretty big barrels, and I was trying to figure out what works best in the barrel. And I thought if I had a foot that was really flexible, I could get down really low in that barrel riding stance. And so prosthetic feet are based on different grades, and it's your body weight. The bigger you are, the stiffer your foot is, your prosthetic carbon fiber foot. So I thought if I were to just basically make it like I'm almost wearing a kid's prosthetic, like I barely weigh anything, it'll be super flexible, that I'd be able to get really low on the board and get in that barrel stance. And I started buying feet on eBay, used prosthetic feet with that grade, so being able to get really low in the barrel. But I found that with all that energy lost as I try to get really low and have no energy return with that carbon fiber, that it didn't turn the surfboard. So I had a hard time turning the board. And I found that there's like a good medium of having enough flexibility, but also having that kinetic energy return to be able to drive the rail of the surfboard and then get speed and be able to do maneuvers and come out of barrels and whatnot. So it's been a really fun process, like tinkering around. And early on, I would buy 10 feet at a time off eBay. I remember one time I bought 10 prosthetic feet from Germany, and I took a photo of it, and I remember posting it on my social media, and Kelly Slater commented on how my quiver of feet were instead of a quiver of surfboard. And I thought that was pretty cool. And my friends would come over and we would tinker around with these feet that I bought on eBay, like take hand saws to them and cut different angles, try different materials, try putting like a sandal on the bottom, gluing that, or taking that rubbery part like on the bottom of a tennis shoe and gluing that on for different grips, trying Velcro, different, all kinds of stuff. So there was about a couple year period where I just tried a bunch of different things. And then one day I took a bad wipeout and I lost my prosthetic, the entire prosthetic, like the feet I was able to change out and buy on eBay, but the other part that connects to your residual limbs called a socket. And it came off of me in a pretty good wipeout, and I never saw my prosthetic again. And I was bummed. So it put a little stop to my surfing for a while. And I had been taking some early GoPro shots of me with a tail mount in the tube with my prosthetic and sharing it on social media. And one day I opened my Facebook and there was a message from a guy in Iceland who worked for a prosthetic company called Osur. They're the global leader in prosthetics. They're a huge company, $1 billion company. They're the second biggest employer in Iceland, but they pretty much make the best prosthetic legs in the world. And he invited me to come to Iceland to design me a surfing prosthetic. And I was the happiest guy, as you can imagine. I jumped on a plane and went to Iceland, and brought my surfboard there. We'd go out and surf, really cold water, come in. Him and his team would tinker and mess around and try new things, go back out. And I came back home to Hawaii with 3 new prosthetic legs. And it's been a really fun process working with them. They're very innovative, and they disproportionately spend a huge amount of their revenue on R&D, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah. And I really think at one point in the future, adaptive surfers are going to have an advantage over able-bodied surfers that will basically have the Kelly Slater foot and be at an actual advantage in the sport of surfing.
Wow. You were able to create like a lot of interest, of course, but also confusion, because I wanted to ask 300,000 questions.
Yeah, I know. I just always a run-on sentence.
But nevertheless, let's start from one of the last topics. So, because with the podcast, with the Olympic Games of Tokyo in 2021, I was able to talk with Christian Otter Bailey about adaptive surfing. And we were talking about the topic of the surfboard, that the surfboard needs to be shaped in a different way, the surfer to perform. And here we're talking about the prosthetic
foot, prosthetic leg.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. But we are not talking about the surfboard, or there is one topic that is the prosthetic. Then also the surfboard needs to be modified in your case for performance.
Yep. For myself, my journey was I started that day at Ledbetter Beach on a very big soft surfboard. Eventually the boards got smaller, sort of like that scene in the movie North Shore. Yeah. And now I ride like a 5'11", volume 31, 19 and a half, 2.5 is kind of my go-to dimensions. It's basically just a regular shortboard. I found that epoxy seems to be a little bit more responsive to the carbon fiber, but sometimes here in Hawaii, and especially like if it's windy or the waves are heavier, epoxy sits on the water a little too much. So I kind of it varies what I ride, whether a regular surfboard or an epoxy board. But epoxy in smaller waves, it definitely does seem to have an advantage. Mess around with fins, that doesn't really seem to play that big of an issue with the prosthetic compared to an able-bodied surfer. Deck pads, I like to have a flat pad. For a long time, I used the Dakine Hobgood pad because it was a flat pad. It seems like that bar kind of messes up with the prosthetic a little bit. A real big thing that I found that helps my surfing, especially backside surfing, and I learned this on a snowboarding trip, was I can take a wrench and change the angle of my foot, whether it's toe in or toe out, that yaw. Okay. And by making it so I'm not so pigeon-toed, but actually forcing it out a little bit so my stance isn't so narrow, like pigeon-toed, helps me to drive off my heel more and open. It's crazy how just opening up that toe opens up the rest of my body and my shoulders, especially backside. I'm able to get a lot more of a good bottom turn backside with that toe opened up, and I can close and I make markings and I can't take that Allen wrench and change different angles and I make notes and things like that. But I found toe out backside, and it was all from a snowboarding trip. The guy that hooks up your bindings was like, try this. It works great for snowboarders. And he did that. And I took it to surfing and it worked really well.
Wow. Very interesting. Wow. And okay. Okay. So the what you're saying that basically the surfboard is the same, but
yep.
the material is changing, of course. Like, yep. But also the material is. I mean, each one of us has its own its own choices, right? On fin and material. So so it's very interesting how things modulate and are different according to the surfer, which is
yep. But I found I've gotten about throughout the years maybe half a dozen hand-me-downs from Bethany Hamilton, all epoxies, and those seem to work really well for me. I don't know if they're custom made for her with her one arm, if how different they are, and that'd be a good question to ask her. But her boards seem to work really well for me, and everyone I think except for one board were magic boards that she gifted me over the years.
Nice. She's very kind, you know.
Yeah.
Definitely. And okay, so going back a bit on what you were saying before about after the accident with the shark, you went to bodyboard after 1 month, right?
Yeah. It was the doctor said I could get back in the water, that they had taken the staples out of my foot, and the risk of infection was gone. And they were like, you can get back in the water. And I was like, heck yeah. That was the most difficult part of the attack itself, was being out of the water for that month. I'd never in my life that I had remembered being out of the water that long. And that saying, you know, your gills are drying up. That was really relevant to me. I felt like I needed to get back in the water. And I think it helped with maybe my mental state, getting back in so soon, and my sense of normalcy and getting back on the horse and being able to sort of have the continuity that I had. And nothing really changed after that, because I was back at the beach a couple times a week at minimum, and trying to get tubed with my friends, just like I was a couple months back with 2 feet.
How psychologically, if you don't want to answer this question,
no.
How psychologically it affected you, the fact that you lost?
You know, and I talked about this a few months back to it. It was conference of first responders about sort of a mental impact of an injury like this, and very fortunate that I have never had flashbacks, bad dreams. There's been no anger issues, resentment. I mean, if you're to ask me whether I'd paddle out that day knowing I'd be here limbless and having the life that I have now, absolutely. It's been like a wild, crazy, wonderful, beautiful ride since then. And I feel fortunate because I know other people losing limbs, it's been tough for them. And for me, it was the most seamless. And there was, you know, challenging times. And I won't lie, there was times my prosthetic would break. I would get really bad blisters. I wouldn't be able to, you know, do things that I wanted to do that day because of my disability. And fortunately, a lot of that's gone now because I have the best prosthetics. And my quality of life has improved immensely because of it. But I was just, I think at 18 years old, you're just happy-go-lucky. I was getting tubed right, you know, months after, so very soon after the attack. I was back with my friends. I got into photography. I love that. I had incredible family and community support. I it was just, and the actual attack itself was very fast. It wasn't painful. I felt zero pain at all. I felt like just immense amount of pressure on my legs. And when I passed out and woke up, I wasn't really, I thought I was going to die, I think, on the beach that day. And I wasn't scared to die, but to wake up in the hospital surrounded by my family, alive and relatively healthy, minus missing a couple things, just felt grateful and stoked.
You were talking about community and family. I guess those
Yep.
they play an enormous importance, right, in moments like this.
Yep.
So
Yep.
being
They were there for me the whole time. Since then I've gotten really into shark conservation. I'm an avid shark diver, shark photographer, and it's something that's a bit unorthodox. And you'd think a lot of parents and a lot of family members would be like, why are you doing that? And my parents have been incredibly supportive and got my back since day one. And if it's something I believe in, it's something I want to do. They back me 100%. So I feel very grateful to have that family.
what have you learned? So now, of course, people that do not know you, but we're gonna talk about it.
Yep.
Know that you are like a very talented photographer and shark photographer, ocean photographer. So, what have you learned about sharks that you didn't know now, after all these years, that you didn't know at the time before, at the time of the attack?
Yeah. I mean, getting attacked, that's an extreme event. As we surfers know, that's doesn't happen all the time. It's a statistical anomaly. I had seen a shark prior to the attack once, freediving, spearfishing. It was very a peaceful kind of moment, and it just swam by, and it wanted a bit of the fish that my friends had speared, and took that and swam away. And I just thought it was a cool experience. And the attack itself was violent. It had its jaws in my legs, and I had a punched in the nose to let go. And it was a very big shark, and came very close to killing me. Since then, I've gone on countless shark dives. I spent, I don't know how many hours and days and weeks underwater with sharks, and have never had an experience even close to that. You learn underwater that, 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time, sharks aren't doing what they did on me that morning. They're just swimming by, they're just cruising, they're just being sharks, doing what sharks do. It's just those very rare moments that something like that happened to me make the news. And Hollywood's done a really good job being Hollywood and selling us that sharks are scary, that they're to be feared. We've got Shark Week, and it's really a play on them being so big, so powerful. The ocean can be a scary place. They live in areas where it's dark and down deep, and can come up and can attack you. But by far and large, and this has been the biggest thing on my shark journey, is learning that they really care less about people. And if it did want to eat me and like the taste of what I was, I wouldn't be here right now talking to you. It was just a mistaken identity. That morning, the water was really stinky. There was a crazy dead fish smell in the air, and I should have taken that as a sign not to paddle out, but the waves were going off, and we went surfing anyways, or we went bodyboarding anyways. And I should have maybe taken that as a cue to, listen to those, that doesn't happen every day to smell that. And I haven't smelled it since then. So I think I was just wrong place at the wrong time.
But you transform it into you saw the positive in all this bad adventure, right? Like you said, your life
Yep.
has taken
But it wasn't like this mindful sort of agenda that I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to get into shark diving. It's just one thing and one road and one avenue opened up to the next. I got a phone call right when I finished art school. My goal in art school was to be a swimwear photographer. I had friends that were photographers shooting models, and it seemed like they had the best job in the world, going to these remote islands shooting girls in bikinis, and that's what I wanted to do. And I learned everything I could about fashion, spent a lot of time in the studio, got a job working and a lot through with Ryan Hackman at Quicksilver. And I started shooting a lot of guys swimwear and professional surfers, got jobs with Surfer Magazine, Trans World Surf, Surfing, a lot of the international magazines. And I was pretty busy in the surf world doing surf stuff and really enjoying it. It was challenging and fun. And I was at the beach all day, and I had my phone rang one day, and it was a number I didn't know, and I usually kind of don't pick up numbers. Just kind of depends if I feel it or not that day. And I picked it up, and she's like, "My name is Debbie. You don't know who I am. I'm a shark attack survivor myself from Florida, and wanted to know if you'd like to get into shark conservation." And those are words I had never heard before. Shark conservation. I knew a heck of a lot what sharks were doing to people like myself. I didn't know what we were doing to sharks. And she's like, "Don't worry. On YouTube is a documentary called Shark Water, and watch that and call me back the next day if you feel like, wanting to learn more." And I watched it that night and was completely blown away by what we were doing to sharks, the importance of sharks in our ocean, how they keep everything in check as an apex predator, shark fin soup. And I think as somebody that loves the ocean, and the ocean had given me so much in my life. I mean, it's taken a bit, but it's given me so much more. And felt if I could do something in my unique situation, so be it. I love the ocean, and if sharks are a part of a healthy ocean, I want to help. And called Debbie back the next day and asked her how I could help. And she said that they were getting together a small group of us shark attack survivors from around the country to go to Congress, to the United States Senate, and lobby for shark protections. And it was a week later, I was in the halls of DC talking to our senators, and I think it was mostly using my story to open up these doors, these powerful lawmakers, but we were able to get the bill passed. And I came home, and shortly after, we had a state law that made the possession of shark fins contraband. And I spoke out again as a shark attack survivor and the irony of that and wanting to protect sharks. And we got that bill passed. And it was shortly after that again that I met a lady named Ocean Ramsey. And she's one of the most well-versed shark experts on shark behavior. And she invited me to go to Guadalupe, Mexico. It's a hotspot for great whites. And went on that trip. I had a really good camera at the time. Like I was working for Quicksilver and doing a lot of surf stuff, and a good water housing. I just didn't really think to bring it on that trip. I don't know why. I don't know. But I had gotten second place in a photo contest, the Live Like Science Steep and Deep contest. And I won it was the Hero 2 or the Hero 3 GoPro, but it didn't have a screen on the back. And I brought that probably because it was easy to pack. And I think I sort of piggybacked this trip with another trip. And that's why I didn't bring my big camera. But I had the GoPro, and very first day underwater, I saw my first great white and was just blown away. It was like I was looking at a dinosaur, and I would, take a picture here and there throughout the day. And that evening, I put that mini SD card into a card reader and put that card reader into my laptop and saw in Lightroom my very first shark photos. I gravitated to what I photographed. I thought it was really cool. And I was like, heck, this is much cooler than shooting any girl in any bikini on any beach in the world. And since then, it's been my ultimate subject, my ultimate muse in a way. I think sharks are challenging as a subject. They're elusive. If you want to photograph great whites, there's really only 4 places in the world you can do that. So, and to get there, you've kind of got to go to the end of the earth to find these animals. And just the beauty, the speed underwater, which they can move, the way their eyes, and the pupils, and I think it's such an undiscovered subject as a photographer. A lot of things on this planet have been shot to death. There are so many incredible stories of sharks that have yet to be told. And I think it's also, as a photographer, I found joy in balancing out a true narrative of what sharks are. Hollywood and Discovery Channel and Nat Geo have done a really good job of pulling on the side of sharks that are dangerous and selling that as these creatures that are just ready to attack anything. And I think as a photographer, you want to be true to your subject. And I've enjoyed being true and authentic and telling more true stories of sharks. And it's a bit tough on social media, not tough, but it's easy to find yourself getting a clip that can be considered viral, a shark doing something like ripping something apart, teeth out, eyes rolled back, and you put it on social media and it goes viral. And you get a lot of eyeballs on your account or whatnot. But to me, that's not really doing anything for the shark. All it is you're just keeping that Jaws persona going on. And I think it's healthy to really balance out your image sharing with what a shark normally does. And that's just swim right into the surface with beautiful light hitting its dorsal fin and doing its thing.
Yeah, of course. I think, as you said, Hollywood influence quite a lot, the perception that we have of shark today. But I think maybe in your profile or somewhere, I read the news that there is one shark killed every 3 seconds in the world, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's upwards of 100 million sharks a year killed for their fins alone. That was a number that came on that documentary Shark Water. It came about halfway through the film, and I thought it was a typo, and I rewound that moment because I'm like, there's no way. I didn't even realize there was 100 million sharks in the ocean.
Yeah, it's like kind of if we think about 100 million is overpopulation,
Yep.
but of course, like 70% of more of the
Yep.
world is.
Yeah. I mean, just in the time that we do this podcast, I'm sure it's in the thousands that are killed.
It's
Yeah.
great thing also because, as you said, most of the thing are for the fin and not the rest of the
Yeah.
carcass
Yeah.
is not used to feed
Yeah.
anybody, right? It's just
Yeah. It's very, I believe it's very wasteful. I think if you kill something, you should try to use as much of that as you can. But the entire, basically only a small portion of that shark is used. And it's for a soup that has no nutritional value. It's got very little cultural significance. In fact, it's high in mercury and it's toxic and it's not healthy for you. And fortunately, I think there is a shift on the consumption of shark fin soup in Asia. The younger generations, I think, a lot through social media and a lot of celebrities really, standing against families serving that at dinner. I think that is shifting, and I think issues with sharks are more and more so. It's becoming a bycatch for the seafood industry. Sharks are indiscriminately killed for, like here in Hawaii, tuna and swordfish on the longline fisheries. The sharks, they'll bite indiscriminately, and they're a big part of the bycatch of the commercial fishing industry.
it's very. I think one day I'll do one episode on sharks. I think it's very important to people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as surfers, and you travel the world, and you'll notice that some of the best surf spots in the world have big shark populations. There seems to be a real correlation between a lot of sharks on the reef and a healthy reef. You look at Tahiti, you look at Fiji, you go to some of these sites even to go diving, and if you go to a dive site that's full of fish and you've got huge amount of biomass, biodiversity, there's fish everywhere and colors, and the coral reef is vibrant, you're going to have sharks there. It's just part of the, they go hand in hand. You've got a healthy reef, you've got a healthy shark population.
Talking about photography, I was so lucky to interview a lot of surf photographers, from Art Brewer to I don't know, Aaron Chang or Jimmy Metico. I mean, a lot of them, and some also ocean photographer. And we always talk about perspective. How much importance is perspective in surf photography? So for you that you have done surf photography or commercial photography to surf, and then where I guess the perspective has a lot of importance. How does that translate when you have like a shark in front of you? I mean, the things are more or less the same. Is a different thing. How does it?
It's very similar. I believe in the way I view photography. I try to tell new stories, show new angles, show something that nobody's seen before. It started when I was into surf photography, and I spent a lot of time, like, let's say, a pipeline. I wouldn't be found next to a group of 20 photographers shoulder to shoulder with the same camera, same lens, same angle, same lighting, same surfer, same identical image. Those 20 guys that are shoulder to shoulder, it's really, what are you doing that's different than the person next to you? You've probably got the exact same shutter speed, the same f-stop. So I was always way down the beach or trying a different lens in the water, just doing something that was different and to show something new. And I really transpire that over to surf photography, or to underwater photography, and to shark photography. The majority of underwater photographers use a fisheye lens, use maybe a 15 millimeter or a very wide angle lens. And the reason is the further away underwater your subject is to the lens, you lose contrast, clarity, sharpness. So you want to be as close to your subject as possible, but you also a lot of people want to show the entire subject. So you've got to have a wide angle lens. 9 out of 10 or more underwater photographers are using a fisheye or a very wide angle lens. Almost everybody. And if you were to Google underwater photography or underwater photography of a whale, a shark, dolphin, turtle, fish, whatever it is, they're everything that comes up is going to be a wide angle lens. And one of my very first shark dive trips, it wasn't Guadalupe. It was my next trip after that I brought a proper camera. I took a 50 millimeter lens underwater, and it's more traditionally of what you would use to shoot a person.
Yeah.
And I spent the day photographing with that 50 millimeter, and again, putting my memory card that evening into my laptop. I was like, wow, this is something cool. This is something different. I think it does justice to the shark. It makes their features, and it really brings out the expression and just the overall vibe of what a shark is underwater. You wouldn't take a fisheye lens and shoot a person for a portrait. Traditionally, you use longer focal lengths. It flattens out proportionately, like your nose to your ear, your smile, everything. It makes everything look much more flattering and more real and realistic. And I started doing that underwater with sharks. And the only way that I can do that is because we're always diving in very clear water. So I can be a little further away from the shark and still get incredibly sharp images with good color, good contrast. But fortunately, a lot of these really good lenses and these longer focal lengths, they focus really close. So I'll also get, if shark comes within inches of me, I can still hold that focus and get beautiful details of the gill plates or the eye or the, ampullae of Lorenzini, the dorsal fin, and show kind of almost like you're shooting a portrait of somebody's shoulders or different, body parts and muscle parts. It's just a kind of a unique, different way of looking at the animal. And it goes back to shooting surfing and really trying to tell a new story or show something unique to your subject. I think life's too short to do the same thing everybody else is doing.
No, but it's not the first time that I hear about surf photography with a 50 millimeter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, also because I did for a bit the concert photography for low light, 70 to 200 or maybe 50 millimeter. But and I think that a lot of people are thinking that the camera makes the difference, but the lens, I think, has a maybe better impact than the camera itself. Do you agree with me? Or
I agree. And if I were to say to spend your money on getting a nicer camera body or a nicer lens, get a nicer lens. Lenses last, generations. Good glass is good glass, whereas now, especially in the digital world, the camera body is changing and those specs are changing, every year, every other year. When I started shooting a lot of water photography on the North Shore of Oahu, it was when I was working for Quicksilver, and it would have been my first year shooting for them. And the majority, again, 9 out of 10 people in the water at that time were using fisheye lenses, swimming in the pit at Pipeline and trying to get a cover of JOB or Kelly or whoever with these fisheye lenses and these fisheye ports. And because the current is so strong, I sometimes, if the current's not strong where I go to shoot, what I'll do is leave my prosthetic on the beach and I swim out with one fin. I have less drag because I can't put a fin with my prosthetic. But if there is current, like let's say bigger Pipeline, that means I've got to go walk up the beach towards off the wall and jump in, take the Ehukai Express down into the channel and out to pipe. And then when it's time to come in, my prosthetic is going to be at off the wall or even further down, depending on how big it is. And hopefully it didn't get washed away with swells coming up and tides changing or somebody stealing it, because North Shore Oahu can get crazy. So if I take my prosthetic off, I shoot Pipeline. When I come in, I'm going to end up all the way down by Pupukea with the current. And how am I going to hop up the beach? That's way too far. So what I would have to do is on the bigger days, take my prosthetic in the water with me. And I would do like the surf strap that made it so if a wave destroyed me, my leg wouldn't rip off. I've kind of figured out how to keep it onto my body pretty well, but I couldn't put a fin on it, so I'd have a lot of drag. And it would have been way too dangerous for me to shoot in the pit with the 15 millimeter fisheye with my prosthetic, trying to get the shot when it's 10-foot Pipeline. There's no way, because I wouldn't be able to swim fast enough when the sets come. The entire lineup would disappear and I would be in the impact zone. Because I think I'm a good swimmer, but I'm not good enough at 10-foot Pipeline with this piece of weight basically hooked to me to be able to get out of the impact zone. So what I would do is, to cheat that, I used a 70 to 200 millimeter zoom lens, and I sat on the shoulder. So I had a little bit more time to get out of the way if a cleanup set came, a little less out of the impact zone, but I learned how to use that to really get good action shots and still shoot the Quicksilver guys, because I didn't want to sit on the beach, and these guys get incredible waves, 8 to 10 foot second reef pipeline, incredible rides, and I'm getting a land angle that's far in, severe. It's just, I think sometimes water shots, a big pipeline when the conditions are right, especially in the late afternoon, trumps any land angle. So I was able to use camera lenses and try to sort of cheat that system to still get really good photos and not put myself as much in the danger zone. And then I transcribe that over into underwater photography as well, using those longer focal lengths. Sometimes I'll shoot with that same lens, 70 to 200 underwater with sharks. And there's probably only a handful of people in the world that have ever taken a 70 to 200 underwater and photographed with it. It's more difficult. You miss a lot more shots. Sometimes it doesn't work. It's got to be incredibly clear water. But that's one of the fortunate things of shooting sharks is you get that clear water. And we do that because of safety. I wouldn't shark dive in murky water.
Yeah, I guess that's as you said before, it's a kind of additional complication, right? That you don't want to have down in the ocean. And tell me, maybe I have it's a stupid question, but of course, when you take a picture of a surfer, like the most, let's say, pipeline or not, the most danger that you feel is the wave, or the ocean moving, like making sure that after you take the picture, you don't get wiped out by the wave. Or shooting a shark, there is like additional layer of danger, right? Because you are dealing anyway with an unpredictable animal. Is it right?
Yeah.
So how do you manage that? Like how do you manage the fact that in front of you have a danger anyway? You have a
So with sharks, the number one would be diving in clear water and showing a lot of eye contact. As soon as I see a shark underwater, I want it to know that it knows that I'm there. So I will look at it to make sure it sees my eyes looking at it. You'll find their energy level really drops down. We try to make ourselves bigger sometimes by wearing bigger dive fins. It puts you a little further up in that hierarchy. Sharks have a very social structure, and to be more dominant puts you in a safer position. Things like sometimes wearing all black, and really the biggest one besides the eye contact is having your head on a swivel, is to always turning around, never get locked in on one shark or one something, because there could be multiple sharks in the area, and it's not really the shark that you're looking at or you're photographing it that you want to be careful of. So it's really having your head on a swivel and constantly spinning around, looking almost it's like you got eyes in the back of your head, that you can't be surprised underwater. So you're constantly aware of your surroundings. But as much as that sounds scary, and you've got to worry about those issues underwater with safety, for me, I spend more time thinking about the safety of my gear. If I'm scuba diving, what's my bottom time? The rate that I'm sending to the surface, my surface interval times, stuff like decompression sickness, whether my regulators acting right. Like, just there's a lot of things on the scuba diving side of things that you want to be comfortable in your gear. You want to be comfortable in that area with currents, getting on and off boats and big swells. A lot of times it's really rough when you're on a boat, but you go underwater and it's calm and beautiful. A lot of times, like, having a good sized swell when doing boat dives really isn't going to stop us, but it's really knowing your gear. And on the photography side of things, it's really like, you don't want to be finicking around with your settings and so locked in on your camera and thinking about camera stuff. You want to be thinking about your dive, how safe you are diving, and then the sharks. And the photography really is the last thing that you want to be putting your energy on. I shoot manual underwater with my camera, and I know my settings pretty well. Really, what I'm doing underwater is I'm just making sure and this is the same rule that you shoot with people, is you always want to have the nearest eye in focus. It's one of the weird photography rules that you can't really break. If you're shooting a portrait of a person, to have the nearest eye, that's where you want to have your focus point. I do the same thing underwater with sharks. So majority of my mindfulness and my energy in the photography process underwater is making sure that square, that autofocus square, is on the shark's eye.
Wow.
I think everything goes into that besides safety and popping my head away from the viewfinder every couple seconds to look around and make sure I'm not getting surprised by anything, going back and then putting that square on the eye, unless I'm doing detail shots of, like I mentioned earlier, a dorsal fin or the nose or something else. But if I'm doing a shot where the eye is involved, I'll always be putting that square on the eyeball.
Well, it's a good tip for
Yeah.
shark photographer out there. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's not many people that take photographs of sharks, but that's a good rule I would say, try to suggest, is always keeping the near eye in focus.
Okay.
And that's something you can't fix in Photoshop or Lightroom or any post-production software. If you mess the focus up, you've messed the focus up. It's really nothing. There's no software program that can fix that.
Exactly. Maybe
blurry photo.
Maybe artificial
maybe AI in 10 years, 5 years, 2 years.
But that would not be as how do you call it, artistic as of today. Tell me something. So you have done a fantastic book with Rizzoli, right?
Yep.
Shark. Are you planning to do to release new stuff in the future?
Yeah.
Are you working on something?
So that book we had published this September. It was about a 3-year project that it was really fun. It's my first and only book. It's a coffee table book on sharks, shows sharks. It's called Shark Portraits, and it's basically sort of the photography I just talked about, of showing sharks almost like you're shooting a person. I believe it's about 240 pages, and I'm really stoked with how it came out. And I would say I would love to do a black and white fine art book on great whites, just great whites in black and white, some really beautiful tonalities. And this book, the book I just published, was about 10 years worth of shark diving. So I would, to do a good book, you've got to spend some years on a lot of trips to get some really good stuff, I think, to make something that's worth putting together in a collection. So it wouldn't be anything that's coming out in the next year or two, but I'm already starting, I was in New Zealand for 2 weeks. I got back about 2 weeks ago and spent a lot of time underwater with great whites. I think we did like 8 days on the ocean with great whites. And a lot of that time underwater, I was thinking about that book and shooting for that book. So that was really sort of the start of this new project.
This gives me also an idea also how to justify the value of books of photography, right? It's not that you just like decide one day to do a book. You just go underwater, you take a picture, and that's it. The book is done and ready for publishing. It's like 10 years of images. Of
it started about 3 years ago. I had dating a girl at the time, and she thought that it would be a great idea to do a book. And we went to on Oahu. It's, I think, the only bookstore we now have in the state. It would have been a Barnes and Noble, and looked at other photographers, art photography, nature photography, and Rizzoli, the publisher, seemed to make the best books in that genre. And a year prior to that, I got the cover of Kai Lenny's book that was done with Rizzoli. So I had a contact at Rizzoli, a wonderful lady from Poland named Martinka, and I reached out to her with an inquiry email. Actually, my friend Danny Fuller messaged her and sort of linked up. Mike would love to talk to you about a book. And he's like, Martinka. And I'm like, I know that name. And I was like, oh yeah, I worked with her on Kai Lenny's book. And so I emailed her a pitch. I created a little PDF pitch deck and emailed her. And she's like, let me talk to my bosses. And a week later, she's like, let's do this.
Amazing.
Imagine how stoked I was.
Yes, it's fantastic. Yeah. Because books are to stay, right?
Yep.
And so that's the legacy in a certain way. You know? Okay, so we're gonna finish this interview with a short Q&A session. So please answer the first thing that comes up to your mind. 6 questions that I ask everyone on the show. So
awesome.
The best surfboard that you ever rode?
Channel Islands, New Flyer, 6.0, 19.5, 2.5, epoxy, Swallowtail.
Best surfer of all time?
Andy Irons.
Yes. From Hawaii, you have to say.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say Kelly, but it's a different story. Yeah. Then, personal question: your favorite song or kind of music?
Ooh, split between reggae and country. Yeah, yeah.
A favorite surf spot? It is not a secret.
Uh, Shoots, like I can't say any spots here on Kauai, Oahu. I love Pupukea. I would say, yeah, I really love Pupukea. I love Rocky Point as well.
Okay. Favorite shaper of all time?
Ooh, favorite shaper of all time. I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know. Yeah, I would say Britt Merrick. I think Britt Nall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question is a little bit unusual. I'd like to know your best relationship advice. Where relationship can be romantic relationship, friend relationship, relationship with the ocean, whatever you like to answer. I'll take it.
I would think that all of it sort of could come into, and I think it's what the definition of aloha is. It's giving without expecting anything in return. I think if you do that in whatever relationship, whether it's personal, business, your relationship with the ocean, give without expecting anything in return.
No, definitely. I totally agree with you. Every surfer must in that sense.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mike, for being with me on the
Thank you for having me. This has been an absolute blast. I do a fair bit of podcasts, and the majority are shark based. And to be able to talk about surfing and my love for the sport and the love for adaptive surfing, it's been fun. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Ciao.
Aloha. Cheers.
Bye. Hi, it's me again. I hope you enjoyed our today's episode. If you want to know more about us, please follow www.thetempleofsurf.com and all our social media. Mahalo!